If the United States and Iran go to war, it won't start from zero. It would emerge from years of shadow conflict, regional strikes, and escalating strategic pressure, especially involving Israel and the broader Middle East. And if it crosses into direct confrontation, the consequences won't stay regional. Today, we're breaking down how it could begin and how it could reshape global power. For years, the US and Iran have operated in what analysts call a gray zone conflict. Not open war, but not peace either. This includes cyber operations, sanctions, pressure, maritime seizures, proxy militia activity, Israeli airstrikes on Iranian-linked targets in Syria. Direct missile exchanges between Israel and Iran. Israel plays a key strategic role here. From Israel's perspective, Iran's nuclear capability is an existential threat. From Iran's perspective, Israel is a forward operating extension of U.S. influence. That triangle, U.S., Iran, Israel, creates a constant escalation ladder. The system is already pressurized. A direct U.S.-Iran war would likely not begin with a ground invasion. More realistically, escalation could follow. A major Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear facilities, a large-scale missile exchange, a direct attack on U.S. forces in the region, or a miscalculated retaliation spiral. If Washington decided to intervene directly, initial actions would likely involve airstrikes on nuclear facilities, missile system suppression, air defense neutralization. Command infrastructure targeting Iran would not respond conventionally. Instead, it would activate asymmetric assets, ballistic missiles, drone saturation, regional militias, maritime disruption, cyber operations. This is where the conflict expands horizontally. Within 72 hours, U.S. bases in the Gulf could face retaliation. Shipping lanes near the Strait of Hormuz could be threatened. Hezbollah in Lebanon could escalate against Israel. Iraqi militias could target American assets. The Strait of Hormuz is critical. Nearly 20% of global oil supply moves through that narrow waterway. Even limited disruption would send markets reacting immediately. But the real shift happens if fighting lasts beyond initial exchanges. If conflict lasts 30 days, the shock compounds. Oil doesn't just spike. It stabilizes higher. Insurance premiums surge. Shipping costs increase. Energy importing economies feel sustained inflation pressure. Governments may release strategic reserves, but those are temporary. Financial markets respond to uncertainty more than destruction. Capital becomes cautious. Emerging markets weaken first. Currency volatility rises. Now, the conflict is no longer military only. It becomes economic. And economic stress reshapes power balance. If Israel remains directly engaged, especially if missile exchanges intensify, the conflict becomes multi-front. Israel's involvement changes escalation math because Hezbollah opens Northern Front risk Gazat. Dynamics complicate diplomacy. Regional Arab states face pressure. U.S. security commitments deepen. At that stage, the war becomes a networked regional crisis, not a bilateral confrontation. China imports significant oil from the Middle East. Extended instability directly pressures its energy security. China may avoid military involvement, but it could increase naval presence, apply diplomatic pressure, expand strategic signaling in Taiwan or South China Sea Russia, would likely leverage the crisis diplomatically. Now, we're no longer discussing a Middle East war. We're discussing a great power alignment test. If Iran perceives existential threat, nuclear acceleration becomes possible. That weakens non-proliferation norms. Regional powers might respond with their own military expansions. Arms races are easier to start than to stop. Even if the war ends quickly, the structural shifts could remain. The most important thing to understand, major wars don't always start because leaders want them. They start because escalation pathways exist, and miscalculation becomes easier under pressure. The U.S.-Iran system already contains proxy networks, regional alliances, nuclear tension. Israeli strategic calculus. Great power competition. It is structurally fragile. Understanding that fragility is not prediction, it's risk analysis. Because the question isn't only who wins a war, it's how the global balance of power changes after it ends.